I said it in my last video, and I will say it again. Yuto Suzuki is absolutely in his element when it comes to making these flashbacks feel impactful and show why these characters have grown into the people that we see today in the current timeline of the story. With what seems to be one of the final chapters of this brief Shin and Sakamoto flashback, as Ando is slowly losing consciousness and Sakamoto is tasked with finding not just one, but multiple of the bombs all planted to destroy the cruise ship, the priority of the duo becomes saving the thousands of passengers on the ship as opposed to defusing the explosives. Ando revealed all of the locations of the bombs to Shin, but it turns out they are placed all over the ship entirely to ensure complete destruction. And considering they are timed to detonate the moment that Ando's last breath is taken, they really don't have any leeway to actually stop them all. On top of that, Ikuro, who has been a guy this whole time apparently, oops, my bad, is now attempting to change the ship's course entirely to land. However, because his goal is to stop Ando from dying, he accelerates the ship at full speed so they can make better time and get emergency medical help. And honestly, Sakamoto says it best here. Ikuro's as determined as he is dumb. Because what are you planning on doing when you need to stop the ship? How close do you think the hospital is to the port? Do you even know where in relative location we are on the water right now? What if we crash land in an entirely separate country with different jurisdictions and they're unable to help? I'm sorry, I just think about way too many of the possibilities that could go wrong here, but you know what? Apparently I'm not the only one that thinks that, because Sakamoto realizes the exact same thing that I did, that this ship is just going to be going high speed fully and ram right into the docks if nobody stops this man. So, as any responsible adult would do in moments like this, Sakamoto chokes Ikuro the fuck out and puts him to sleep. Batman style, you know, breaks this man's neck like it is nothing. And that's 2 Batman references for the chapter reviews today. I know Batman does not kill, but you just can't convince me that some of those hits he does on people are not lethal. I digress. Unfortunately, while Sakamoto and Ikuro were struggling, the assassin broke all of the ship's controls in order to keep the cruiser moving at full speed, just dooming everyone to a catastrophic ship crash and explosion, especially with all of the planted bombs. Like, Ando, was he really ever getting out and living after this ship crash? Like, let's really sit down and think about this. There's no way. At this point, they're not even able to turn the ship around or just change its course at all because everything is just destroyed. This entire cruiser is barreling at hyperspeed towards land, and multiple lives are almost taken just in the casualties alone that it is ripping through. So again, Sakamoto, the most reasonable human in the room, does what anybody would do in this situation. Takes Ikuro's anchor and lassos the police helicopter that's flying above currently to yank that shit down and use it like an anchor for the boat. As you do. Why? Because Sakamoto says fuck the police. Sakamoto then jumps down into the helicopter, pulls the officer out, and sets the helicopter propeller at max speed as well in the opposite direction, and essentially just slowing the ship down with an opposing extremely fast vehicle. The 2 vehicles just cancel each other out. I guess that's how that works scientifically. I'm not going to think that hard into it. That's not the point that I'm reading in this manga. It's able to stop the ship just long enough for the quote-unquote crash into the harbor to just be as peaceful as possible. The ship's bow probably just gave it a little kiss as it gives everyone enough time to filter out all the civilians to land. As Shin announces, hey guys, this place is about to blow up. We should probably all get out of here. And here's my next dumb question of the day. After crashing full speed into the docks, did these people really need another reason to get off the cruise? They need someone to announce and tell them that there might be an explosion possibly? One thing that I've noticed just watching the Sakamoto Days anime, go over some older chapters, and just rereading the chapters of the series on my own time, the general population of Sakamoto Days is just so fucking oblivious to everything going on around them. It's genuinely cute and funny. Because, sir, madam, were you really going back to the craps table after that? I would be at the first office I possibly could be, not only just asking for a refund, but I would probably own the goddamn corporation by the end of this shit. Oh my god. But that's just the American in me. Meanwhile, Ando is doing his absolute best to just last as long as possible and not lose consciousness because he's fully bleeding out. Everything is rigged to explode upon his death as well. like I mentioned before. So the fact that he is purposefully making himself survive as opposed to just letting mortality take him and giving in, it does show that he's at least trying to make up for things and is at least a little bit repentful, doing the most he can to just make sure Shin and Sakamoto are at least able to save everyone on the ship. But more importantly, what is driving Ando to continue living is the mere fact that before he passes on, despite his life being absolute trash, verbatim said by him, not believing anything he ever did was the right thing to do, at the very least, Shin, his son, that he risked everything to save, is able to carry on and live. Just wanting to see his son one last time, Ando will hold out for as long as he possibly can, giving Sakamoto and Shin more than enough time to evacuate everyone. And as Shin is about to leave, he realizes that if the ship's still here, his dad must still be alive. And these could potentially be the very last moments he ever has to talk with his father. But right as Shin turns to make his way towards Ando, his ESP clicks on. That supernatural curse that he never even asked for gets in the way of this last and final reunion. But it's the thoughts of a child, an injured kid that's unable to move because of a hurt leg and might get caught in the explosion, that reaches Shin. Despite this being Shin's last ever chance to get the closure that he emotionally needs from his dad, he just can't bring himself to ignore the cries of the child in need. And Shin, in his mind, apologizes to his father before rushing to get that child off the boat before it eventually explodes. And as those final wisps of life finally do begin to fade from Ando's eyes, he just fights harder and harder, thinking of his son. But in that last moment, he catches a glimpse of Shin leaving the cruiser with an injured child on his back. And just then, he realizes something. His son really didn't fall too far from the tree, did he? Despite what Shin really wanted, to meet with his father, that entire opportunity and closure being right there, he chose the quote-unquote morally right decision. He saved the kid. And while we don't know exactly what Ando's circumstances were, we know one thing. Heading Alkamar for Chairman Asaki and probably being pretty highly ranked in the JAA was definitely the easier life for Ando, and at least the career that made the most sense to him. Yet, in his moments as well, at the crossroads, Ando still made the decision to save his son and throw all of that away. Shin turns and manages to see his dad looking down at him from one of the cruiser windows. A smile is curved into Ando's lips as he tells his son the one and only word he can get out before it all comes crashing down: live. Ando's life was truly garbage, but as long as Shin lives, as long as Shin does right by the world and continues to save people, instead of living life as a hitman, at least Ando can die knowing that there's one good thing he did. Which brings me all the way back around to the final message of this flashback, which honestly I've been wrong about at every single turn, so it's good to finally get it spelled out to me. With the death of Ando and Shin choosing to save everyone with Sakamoto instead of selfishly having a final moment with his father, it's very clear that what Sakamoto is getting at by revisiting this memory lane, that dark life, the assassinhood where Shin kills people and fights in the shadows, it's not what Ando ever wanted for Shin. It's never who he was meant to be. Ando's life was forever ruined by that sacrifice he made, saving Shin from Alkamar. If Shin was always meant to be this selfish killer who disposes of others as he pleases, acting as judge, jury, and executioner all on his own, well then what did Ando save him from Alkamar for? What did Ando sacrifice himself and let Shin and Sakamoto get away from the boat for? Sakamoto's not only trying to remind Shin that he's not this person that he claims to be, but also give Shin even more reason than just his own to want to change his ways and never go down that path. Shin's place is at the Sakamoto family store. It was never being a hitman or killing people. And that's what Ando's final message, Ando's final mission for his son truly was. Live, Shin, live. Because Ando, your father, could not. Shin is Ando's living legacy, and the only thing Ando ever did right in this world. Shin cannot end up like Ando. He cannot forget to live. Guys, thank you so much if you made it this far into the video. I sincerely appreciate you. Make sure you hit that like button and make sure you don't miss any future Sakamoto Days videos, or check out maybe the main channel if you're looking for some extra things to watch. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.